It is time for our weekly live stream that we've missed 2 weeks in a row. So we're back to weekly, but you know, we're heading to the summer, a lot can happen. Paul, you are the first, good job. So I tried to do a different layout today. I thought this might be fun. I kind of wanted to sit next to the tank, but to get that rigged up was too much trouble. So I thought, okay, I'll sit in front of the reef and you'll look at the tank over there that's to my right. And what do you think? How's it look? What we have to do is watch for the angelfish. It shall appear. Casual reef keeping, what are you doing getting on here? Kyle, you're supposed to be enjoying Reefapalooza. I'm supposed to be sneaking behind your back, doing live streams. Hey, Derek. Hi, Rick. There's a whole bunch of other names I don't know. I see Bill's Saltwater Haven is here. And Problem Prone. Trying to see what that is in your avatar. I am here. I am here. Yeah, I decided not to travel. I have to take care of customers. I got things to do. Plus, I have a dog. And just so you know, today is 104 degrees in Fort Worth, Texas. My house is at 73, but it feels warmer than 73, and I'm just like, ugh. So I've got the curtains closed, trying to push the heat away. Because curtains are a good defense against heat, right? I just thought it would stop it. There she is. There she is. So I haven't come up with a name yet for her. And the water is a little bit cloudy because I just did, yes, a water change. I told you guys I would do one. I was thinking weekly. So today I decided, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So I went ahead and I changed the water in the tank. I changed 10 gallons, and the whole tank is at 27. Internally, it's probably less. I didn't actually do the numbers yet, but it probably holds 25, maybe 22. I put sand and rock in there for displacement. It could be even less that I'm thinking, because I haven't really given it any consideration. I'm not dosing anything, so I don't need to actually know the number yet. But I will have to bust out a calculator and find out what the real numbers are. The tank here is, I was looking at it, it appears to be 1/4 inch thick glass. I was trying to decide what kind of cleaning magnet I wanted for it. I have the Flipper Nano, which could work. I thought I had a algae-free shrimp, which was a magnet I had forever ago, but I can't find the wet half. I can find the dry half, but I don't know where the wet half is. But that one might work out. I don't know. I haven't decided. But I did try out. I do have a kind of a, not the nano flipper cleaner or flipper cleaning magnet, but the next size up, and I just put that on the tank because I had one open, rather than opening a brand new package. But I was thinking maybe we could answer your questions about this tank that you might have, because there was a lot of comments about where's the filtration, where's the sump, and what am I thinking? Why would I do this? Why would I go to this extent of doing it completely differently than what we're so used to doing when it comes to reef keeping? And while I do call it Caitlin's Reef, it's kind of Caitlin's fish tank. And I am going to put some pretty things in there for the fish, but I'm thinking I'm going to stick to softies. Recordia, zoanthids. There's already 3 frags of zoanthids in there now. I don't know. I'd also like to put in some fun stuff, like maybe sexy shrimp, because they're tiny. She'd love those. I have to get a new Helfriki to replace the one that was lost in the 400 gallon. And maybe a pistol shrimp for the Randall Goby. So those are some things livestock-wise. And I was thinking of maybe putting in a frammer in there, because I have 3 big pieces of it in the back of my reef that are kind of, well, they're out of sight and they're kind of against the glass. So I thought I could put one in there, assuming that my water parameters keep up to where an LPS can be happy in there. Probably can. I did some testing today. The water was 1.026, and because of the cover, I haven't had to top off at all. And the air conditioner vent's directly above it, so it would blow down on that all the time. And then with the air stone, it's causing a lot of salt creep, so the lid is perfect for that. The light above it has a 3D printed snap-on cover that Eric told me about, and so I ordered it from 3dprinting.com, I think it was called, and put that on there, and it's fantastic. And not only does it diffuse it to where the sand bed doesn't have the pixelation that I was seeing at first with the AI Prime, but now it is also, I mean, it wasn't bothering me, but the diffuser did not make it any worse to watch TV. And that was my concern when I sit down and I'm looking at the TV and there's the light right there. Will it be shining in my eyes and irritating me? Will it be one of those things where I got to come up with a solution? And the AI Prime already wasn't a problem. The diffuser, no problem either. It all worked out perfectly the way it's designed. Here, I'll show you guys what it looks like up there. Can you see that? So it looks thicker because it's about, I'd say, double the height of what it was before because of the thing I snapped on. All right, let me put this back down. Sorry, it's so crooked. Now I'll never get this. I had this perfect. Now I'll never get it right. Okay, we'll do this. Arrgh. Trying to find that sweet spot to where it looks level on camera. Okay, I think that's all right. Hopefully it'll stay. Okay. 3D reefing, yes. And I like the air stone in there. I think she would have done that. I think she would have liked to have the bubbles in the back. She had a tank when she lived in Chicago, and it had a I think it was a standard, it was a rose bubble tip anemone. And then she also had a lightning maroon clownfish and then some other stuff. And then she asked someone to watch it for her, and he did a terrible job and ended up killing everything. And when she came home, the aquarium was gone. He not only killed everything, he got rid of it. It didn't even exist. She's like, where's my tank? He's like, yeah, it all died. And so she was very upset about that because that was one of the original lightning maroon clownfish that was bred by Matt Peterson. And so, I thought, well, do I want to try and hunt one down, because people sell them to put in this tank. But no, I don't really want to put a clownfish in there. I think I'd rather put in, I know it sounds crazy, but more angels. So for now, we'll leave it the way it is. And we'll let the little Japanese pygmy angelfish grow larger before it can go in the reef. Then I'm thinking the lemon peel. But Biota has several angels now. And so I'm like, oh, I'd like one of these and one of those and one of those. But the thing is, if I overstock the tank with a lot of fish, the pollution factor will be a big problem. And I want to avoid that. I don't want to pollute this tank incessantly. So like today when I did the water change, I didn't take water from the reef because the water from the reef isn't the cleanest. It's got stuff in it too. So I went ahead and used some of my, my pre-mixed salt water, and I changed 10 gallons. So the when you drain the water down 10 gallons, which is 2 buckets obviously, it's almost to the bottom of that Nero 5. So that kind of looks like not quite half. It looks like less than half. And I could probably get away with a 5-gallon water change each week too instead of a 10. I just did 10 because it's a brand new fish, brand new tank, trying to keep everyone happy and make them ecstatic. The alkalinity on it was a little bit low, so I went ahead and put some buffer in there because there's nothing in there to add alkalinity. Phosphates were measuring around 0.25. Big shock. I have been feeding that tank a couple times a day. I don't want to overfeed it, but I want to make sure these fish get their food. So I put in a squirt of arthropods, and then in the evening, I put in 1 pipette of the frozen slurry I always throw in my reef. I squirt one in there for them as well. So there's 2 chances a day for them to find food. And there's quite a few sponges on the rock, which angelfish like sponge, so technically the sponges I really love and was excited to get on live rock might be consumed by my new pet. So we'll see. All right, so by the way, I do want to mention before I start answering your questions, this week I dropped 3 videos in a week's time. So I'm sure some of you saw them. I don't know if all of you saw them. Some of you don't get notifications, so you don't know. But I dropped one about the most expensive fish I ever bought. I did one about the setting up of this tank you're looking at right now. And then last night, I guess, I uploaded a video. No, 2 nights ago, I uploaded a video about the algae turf scrubber. I'd never actually done a video specifically only to that item. I've been showing it on and off. I did a bunch of different moments in Reef Diaries where I was cleaning it and explaining what was going on, but I never gave it a full tour. So I thought, and someone said, hey, where's your video on that thing? And I was like, it's still on my phone, of course, where it belongs. So I went ahead and I grabbed all the content I could find over the last couple of years and put together that quick little 8-minute video and showed you guys how I had it rigged over my sump in a way that I can trust it completely. All right. Varshel says, is this live footage? Yes, you are looking at what's happening right now to my right. And I'm live too. EDC, welcome back to the hobby. That's awesome. I'm glad you're back. You know you couldn't leave. I mean, there's no way. Once you start this, you know, you might take a break, but you'll always come back. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate that. He says the fish looks great. And, you know, I've had a couple of random comments on YouTube like, is it still alive? And I'm like, why? Why would you say that? Why would you put that out in the universe? Hey, I hope you win something, Kyle. He's at the Reefapalooza in New York, I think, and trying to win stuff in the raffle. GP, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that my videos are helping you. The videos on this channel, there's a ton of information. I don't even know how many videos there are total right now. 300, 400, I don't even know. But there are so many topics that if you go to this YouTube channel and hit the little search box and then type in a word or two of what you're looking for, maybe you'll find a video I've talked about it. Also, there's a lot of information on my website, so never neglect to go to melovesreef.com. I should stick that on the screen and promote my business, right? So if you go to melovesreef.com, there's all my articles and blogs, and they go back almost 20 years. I mean, there's a lot of information on there. I'm planning, as time allows, to start really making the creature ID section of my website more robust. I'd like to do more with it. I've been wanting to do something more with it for a while. Jose at Reef Trace was doing a great job inside the app, but the lack of assistance made him kind of think, oh, this is just too much work. So it's going, you know, at some point it'll be back on my website in my control to where I can work on it. And I'd like to do some stuff with it. I'd like to improve the quality of the information for those, because a lot of people want to know, what is this and how is it supposed to do, and do I need to get rid of it, and how do I do that? So I'd like to do that. Let me get this off the screen. I don't want it there forever, but I do appreciate those of you that do shop at my store. It's very nice. Yeah, this heat wave is insane. Andrea says it's going to be 106 there in Southern California, I think. And I'm just like, this is June. I mean, Texas is known for the worst being in August, and this is already terrible. Now, we have had times where, you know, because I've lived here a long time, we've had times where we were over 110 for like 26 days in a row. So there is the potential for that, and this could be the year. I don't know. But I hate it. I hate heat. I'm a big fan of AC, and I'm glad that I can work from home in the comfort of my home. I'm still not in the new building yet. There's no power to it yet, so I can't do it. But once the power's in there and the AC is running, I can work out there, and that'll be really nice too. Sawyer says this is the perfect video to watch while testing parameters. So speaking of parameters, I have a bunch of numbers I'm going to say out loud that's going to mess up all your testing. So give me a minute here before you go back to counting drops. So the reef behind me, which you guys know what it looks like, salinity today is 1.026. The temperature was 76.6. The pH, because it was early in the day, was 7.85, which is basically 7.9. ORP is kind of low at 260. I don't know why. Alkalinity is 9.5, phosphate's 0.25, nitrate is 20, magnesium is 1450, and calcium is 400. I didn't check potassium because I just got my ICP test back, and it was saying that my potassium is around 435, 445. No, 454. It was up over 450. So I'm thinking of taking the pump that's dosing potassium. Matter of fact, I'll do it right now. I'll tell it to quit dosing it. Let me do that right now while I'm thinking about it. Give me 1 second here. Devices. Nope, that's not what I want. I was on the wrong app. Let's try this again. For some reason, my app has 2 dosing pumps in it when there's only 1 in existence. Don't really know why. So I would like this to stop adding anything. Maybe I'll just change this to 0. Illegal character. 1. Save. All right. Nope. Failed to save. Come on. I'm too far away from the pump. All right. So I'll have to mess with that pump a little bit. No, I don't want to put any rock flower anemones. I don't put any anemones inside this tank at this point because I don't want that little angelfish to swim into it. I had this really pretty, tiny red carpet anemone that was in my reef and it was blowing around. And so I threw it in that tank temporarily just so I can kind of keep track of it. And I put the angelfish in there. And I literally watched it basically swim over next to it and then turn around and kind of, it seemed like it was going to touch it with its tail. And I was like, oh, no, you're not. We're not going to sting any part of your body. So I went ahead and I just quickly got my fingernail under that anemone, pulled it out, threw it in the reef. And I saw it in the top of the aquapora, the shadowcaster, and then it vanished again. I don't know where it is right now. But the thing is about the size of, I don't know, a quarter. And I've been told, you know, it can make up many of itself. But this one just keeps moving. It doesn't stay anywhere put in the main reef. But I don't want anything in there that can possibly hurt this angelfish. Adam says he's tried firefish many times. They don't seem to last more than 24 months. That's not very long. Paul's suggesting the Tunzi Reach magnetic cleaner. I'll take a look at that. I just need something for a cute tank, you know, instead of my giant magnets I use so often. I do want to mention the background. So the back of this tank right now is clear. And because of the bubbles going up, you don't see the wires that are coming from the heater, the Nero, or the tubing from the air pump, you know, the air pump itself. So it's kind of masking that. So there's kind of a reason for the air stone as well. But I had considered putting a black background. I even ordered it, and it's next to the tank on the floor here. And I got it from Amazon. I just needed one small piece of black vinyl. But because there isn't any kind of active filtration in this tank, I have a feeling I will see particulates blowing around all the time because there's nothing to trap them. And because of that, I kind of feel like this grayish, opaquish background, because the wall is gray behind the tank, kind of masks most of that, so it won't be irritating me like there's a snowstorm in there. And interestingly, you don't see a lot of air bubbles blowing around like you do, you know, when bubbles come in from your return pump or from a protein skimmer. It's just the bubbles rising, but you don't see them just keep blowing around. So that's kind of nice. So I like that. I talked with someone at CoralView because I told you in the video that I was ordering a Hydros controller, but it's out of stock still. So I asked them again, like, what's going on? And I'm supposed to get an answer on Monday. But for now, the tank couldn't be less low-tech than it is right now. It is very, very simple. Nick says we have a 200-gallon water change system with an auto water. I'm sorry, we have a 200-gallon system with an auto water change setup. We change 10 gallons per week. Everything's happy, but the nitrate and phosphate are dropping in or almost zero. Should we reduce the water changes or stop it altogether? I don't know what else you have on the system, Nick. You may have a protein skimmer. You may have filter socks or a Clarisy. You may have, you know, all these different things that are all helping to make the water super pristine clear, which may be taking away all the nutrients from the food you're putting in there. You also didn't mention the livestock that's in the tank, you know, and how much food you're putting in per day. But if you are a feeder like I am, where you're putting food all the time, those numbers should not get away from you. But changing 40 gallons a month on a 200 gallons should not drop your nitrate and phosphate, because that's not even 25% of the, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's not even 25% of the water in the tank. So 25% would mean 75% still exists. And you're not even doing it all at once. You're doing it in segments to where you're not actually changing 40 gallons of the exact same water. You're changing 10 gallons of 200, and then some new goes in, and then that number, that water with the newer water is diluted, and then you're changing 10 of that in a week. You see what I'm saying? It's not quite the same as pulling out 40 gallons at once and putting 40 gallons in, because I mean, it's not a huge deal. You're fine. If you like doing that, do it. But if you're worried about the nitrate and phosphate, keep an eye on it. Make sure that it doesn't get away from you. You can dose things like neonitro and neophos. I sell both on my website because people like you need nitrate and phosphate and can't seem to make it like I mean, I have a factory behind me that just constantly makes it. And I'm always trying to knock those numbers down. And you guys are trying to raise them up. It's so crazy to me. Augie, that is a great idea. Again, I'm trying not to turn it into a full-blown reef, but I will tell you this. If I go to that point, if I take it to the point of putting in an abundance of corals, especially stony corals like the scolies, I am planning to hook up one dosing pump to it and use all for reef, because I think that'll take care of all the needs. And then between the water changes and the daily dosing of all for reef, I think I can pretty much have virtually anything in that tank. But I don't want to make it this massively overblown, heavily populated reef. I want to keep it simple because I'm not skimming it. I'm not running carbon on it. I'm not using a hang-on-back filter. I mean, you're looking at it. The sand and the live rock, that's my filtration. And it's biological filtration. It's very normal. And all these other pieces of gear that we love to use, I knew she would never use those. So that's why I did it. I wish she was here now running that tank instead of me. I think she'd do an even better job. Thomas, that's great. 2 years. Fantastic. Do you still have your Flame Angel? GP, don't tell me that. I'm going to San Diego next month. I'm going for Comic-Con. I definitely do not want to be roasting. Of course, I'll be inside the convention hall. GP says, can a drop in nutrients from adding granular ferric oxide, GFO, make my chaetomorpha disappear? Well, chaetomorpha is a plant. It is growing based on nutrients in the water. It's using light from from the light fixture above it, so it's going through photosynthesis, and it is utilizing things so it can grow. Now, one thing you may be doing, and I don't know because you didn't say, is how long you're running that light per day. Some people turn on the light on the Refugium and they leave it on 24 hours a day. And if you're running yours 12 hours a day, maybe you could reduce it down to 9 and see what that does. You may need to dose iron or something from Brightwell called Cheeto Grow. Chaeto Grow. I can't believe I said that. Chaeto Grow to help the algae grow. And you need to have enough of it. I feel like when you just have a tiny bit, it just never really takes off. It's just, you're starting from such... It's not a good idea to start a Refugium with a frag of algae. You need a chunk, or you need to get multiple servings if they only sell you small portions to get in a decent amount. I just feel like it works better when there's more in there than when you start off with a few little twigs. Neil says, I have a large colony of blue tort, Acropora, that's been getting spots on it that look like small bite marks or bleach spots. I've inspected very well for pests and can't find any. Well, it could be Acropora eating flatworms. You could have a fish that's nipping on it. Those are a couple of thoughts that come to mind. Acropora eating flatworms would be my first thought. You can take the coral out of the tank, and if you took it outside and waited like 5 minutes or so, the coral would dry off. But if there's any Acropora eating flatworms, there'll be shiny spots on the coral colony. I mean, I know you'd be stressed doing that, but you can do that. The coral will not just suddenly implode from being out in the air for, outside for a short duration. 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's okay. But that would be my first approach if you can't seem to find them any other way. Brian, I got the live rock from gulfliverock.com. I've been talking about this company for probably the last year or so because I didn't even realize anyone was selling live rock. And since I posted about this topic on my Facebook, I had quite a few people come out of the woodwork saying, hey, we sell live rock too. And I was like, oh. So there's like 3 or 4 companies that sell live rock, which is great news. And one of them is Unique Corals out of California, and they have the Australian live rock, which is pretty cool. And then this is Gulf Coast Live Rock. There's another guy here. I'm sorry, this is gulfliverock.com. I think there's one called Gulf Coast Live Rock. Let me see if I have my notes handy. because I did save some links. It's not here. I feel like I'm looking at the wrong list of notes. Let me try my iCloud notes. I'll find them later, because I did put the notes in here. I remember I saved a bunch of links when I was asking people, but I don't see it right now on my Mac. Yeah, I don't get it. I really feel like I'm looking at the notes that come from my iPhone. Everything's, you know, connected with clouds, and sometimes things get switched over. Neil, no matter what we do, no matter how cautious we are, things still get in from time to time. I mean, my brand new live rock that I got has some little Aiptasias on it, and I need to kill them. So, I mean, you know, it just happens. But it is good, and we should dip, and we should inspect. It's always good to check everything. GP, I'm glad you enjoyed the Planet Aquariums tour. I thought that was a good video. It was long, but there was a lot in there. I'm going to release a shorter version of just them building my tank that some people might like to enjoy. And Rick, thank you. I appreciate that. He said, love the tribute tank to Caitlin. Thanks for sharing it with us. Marshall says, would this tank be the right size for a pygmy angelfish for long term? No, no, not at all. This fish right now is barely an inch in length, but they can grow up to be 6 inches in length. And this tank next to me is 20 inches wide, 18 front to back, 20 inches tall. It's very small. But you can have small fish in a small tank, and then when they get bigger, you can move them. And the whole plan was let this fish get larger and then put in the big tank where, you know, it'll be amazing. But I do want to say this. I'm in no hurry. If this thing takes a long time to get bigger, I'm fine with that. I love small fish. I love them so much. And so for this thing to, you know, somebody said, they put a thing on my Instagram, and they said, you know, I can't wait to see it grow quick so you can, you know, see how big it gets. And I was like, no, don't go quickly. Take your time. just be adorable. That's all I want you to be. And, you know, it goes everywhere. It's not just in the Rockwork. I see it swim all the way up. I see it swim along the front. But obviously, it feels safer near the rock. And I think I kind of feel bad that I didn't put in a big clump of that feather caulerpa. But I didn't want caulerpa taking root all over the rock, because then I'll be pulling it out forever. And, you know, I kind of like the idea of it, but I don't. I like the look, and I liked how the fish was constantly swimming into it looking for things to snack on. But I don't want to take hold. And if there was some way to have it in there where it was like in a pot, potted in the corner, that would be fine, you know? But that's not how macroalgae works. It just puts out tendrils, and, you know, I'd have to be bonsaiing the darn thing all the time, I think, to control it. And if a piece broke off and landed somewhere else and I didn't catch it in time, ugh, it'd be awful. I may look into what other macroalgae I could put in there, things that are not super invasive, and possibly do that. But, you know, once I put in a couple other corals like the Frammer, it probably won't even be necessary. Campbell, thank you very much. He said, so glad to finally catch a live stream. Love the simple tank philosophy and your C. interruptus specimen. I love that she's a baby. I guess I've had her I've had her a month. So now she's 10 months old. 10 months! We're still counting in weeks over here. I always tease people about that when they have babies. Like, are you counting in weeks? Roshan said, I just started a 2-gallon Pico. Any suggestions? Well, top off is critical, and temperature is very hard to control in a 2-gallon container. So you got to watch those super closely. EDC, thank you very much for joining the group. And he said he shared a short clip of his clowns a couple days ago. And then Mr. Kumar said, am I too late? What did I miss out on? I don't know. We were just talking about fish stuff. Born to be a shooter, Josh says, do lights like the Hydra and the Radions grow coral significantly faster than more budget-priced LEDs? I'm going to say yes, but people will argue that. They will say, nah, it's not true. You can get such and such and save hundreds of dollars. But you didn't say what budget LEDs. There are some LEDs on the market that are just lights, and they're good enough to look at a fish, but they're not good enough to grow corals. They're not good enough to keep an anemone alive. There are certain things that just will not do well under bargain LED fixtures. There are other fixtures that are more designed for reef tanks that may do better. But the Radion was pretty much the Cadillac of lights for a while there, and may still be. I know that the Sky is up there in cost. I'm using the Sky for my reef. It's doing really, really well. I've had them for a year now, over a year. And there's been other brands on the market for a long time. You know, Kessel's been around for quite a while. Orphic is another one that comes to mind. So there's those. And some of them cost more, you know. But the thing is, okay, I'm glad you brought this up because I want to talk about it. The lighting that we buy is good for a duration, and then it's no longer good. So let me explain what I mean. We buy a light fixture, and we turn it on, we control it with our phone or with a tablet or with a knob, and we're happy. But typically, the human being says, I'm not going to replace this until the light dies. So I have been talking to people in the last, I don't know, in the last year, I've come across 4, 5, 6 different people. And if that's just a small handful, I'm wondering how many more of you are out there that have lights that are 5 or 6 years old and they're still using them, but their corals aren't doing well. And so, for example, my friend Jerry, who I talk with quite often, he said, my reef just looks like crap. I'm so unhappy. And I was like, don't you have like Gen 3 Radions on your tank or Gen 2? And he was like, yeah, they still work. They're fine. And I was like, I don't think they're fine anymore. I think they're old. I think it's time to replace them with new ones. And, you know, he didn't like that idea. But then after a while, he decided, you know what? I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to order 3 new lights. And he did. And his reef grew. He's just like, wow, everything looks better. The corals are growing. And now he's at the point where because he's working so much, he's ignoring his tank. And when he looks at it, the tank is full. And he's like, man, I can't believe this. Like, neither can I. I remember when you just could not get things to grow at all. But because he upgraded lights to the newer version, after so many years of running lights every single day, that I'm basically saying that light fixtures are not forever. Just like back in the day with metal halide bulbs, we knew we had to replace them between 9 and 12 months. The bulb still worked. We could still see. But corals didn't do well unless we replaced that bulb every 9 to 12 months. T5 users discovered they had to change their bulbs every 6 to 9 months, even though the bulbs were still lit. They weren't burned out. So if you're going into this buying lights thinking, well, I'm going to use it till it dies, that may not be the right plan. It shouldn't, and I'm not saying you have to get a new light every year like I do the iPhone, okay? But you do need to look at your lights after a duration of several years and say, is it time for a new fixture? Is my livestock doing well, or is it time to upgrade? And so that's just something I want to throw out there to you guys, because you're not changing bulbs like we used to. So you don't even understand the concept. You're like, LEDs are forever. LEDs are 50,000 hours. LEDs are fantastic. And they're good. They're great, but they're not forever. And I have been buying LEDs for the house, just different light fixtures. And I had one on the back porch that I thought looked really nice. And that thing didn't last me 6 months, yet on the packaging it said guaranteed 2 years. I have one over the front door that I discovered at Home Depot that is motion activated. When I walk under it, the light just came on, so I can put my key in the door to unlock the house. And stupid thing flickered out, and it's not 2 years old. I'm like, oh. Now, can I find the receipt? Can I find the packaging? No. So I have to go buy another bulb. But, so we're, in these situations, like lighting in your house or in a lamp, you're used to changing a bulb. But a lot of us think, I spent a lot of money on this light fixture and that's it. Well, you spend a lot of money on that light fixture to get it for a certain duration, not forever. So I want you to just keep in mind that there are going to be times where you're going to have to buy a new light and you may not like it. But it is going to benefit your reef and you're going to see things growing better once you've replaced the older fixture with a new one. Now, keep in mind too, cleaning your light fixture should be part of your annual duties. You should definitely clean off the lenses. You might need to clean out where the fan is because it's getting salt creep or it's getting dust buildup. We want to make sure everything's operational so it's not overheating and running at less efficiency, because you're paying for the same amount of power every minute it's on. So make sure that your light is clean and operational. I hope that answered your question, Josh. Sharks 3D Man says, so glad the little one is doing good. I still got to come up with a name. Also very excited to see the tank for the backdrop of the Mila's Reef live stream. Yeah, I thought this would be fun. It's a tiny little tank. Russ says, what about not using a skimmer in a nano aquarium? Well, you don't have to. I mean, I'm not running a skimmer on this one. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but a lot of people like to. I like to have a skimmer on everything. But on this tank, I just knew that Caitlin would never put a skimmer on it. Oh, that's awesome. Yes, Campbell, send me those high-def pictures. I want them. How big is massive? So he found the orange worm in his reef, apparently. And yeah, we need to get some stuff on there. I also, because I never throw anything away when it comes to images and videos, I have an external hard drive packed. I keep saying that when I'm working on the creature ID, when I'm really, enhancing it, I'm just going to start going folder by folder, which would be, I mean, I have 20 years of pictures on my computer, and I was going through like the 2011 folder not long ago. I was like, oh, look at all this good stuff that no one's ever seen. So I'm going to be working my way through all that and then adding those to the site. And yeah, we can definitely do some updates. Yeah, when I first found this worm that he's talking about, the Onini fulgida, it's the orange worm. The reason it's orange is if you put a flashlight on it at night, it glows orange. I mean, it's bright orange. And of course, once the light hits it, it darts away immediately. I mean, it just retracts so fast, it's insane. And that thing is a predator, and it stuns its prey to where it's immobilized, and then it slowly just eats it alive. It's terrible. And I had one in my tank, and then it turns out I had more. And so I was on the hunt for them for a while, and when I was doing all this, I wrote an article about them. Reef Keeper says, I saw your vid where you're setting up the AI Prime and the Nero. I'm not sure if you knew this, but you can do it in Mobius instead of the AI app. I have both Mobius and the AI app, and yeah, I did come across that information about a week ago, but I haven't tried to do it. But maybe I should. I'd love to somehow incorporate the Camor pump into that same umbrella. That'd be really nice. And then, of course, I know there's many people out there that say, I'd love all that to be inside my Apex Fusion app. We all want everything to be easier. But no, I agree. I have an aquarium folder on my phone that must have like 6-7 apps built in there because I need one for this, I need one for that. It's kind of crazy. Dances with Fishes, the notifications do go out. As a matter of fact, when I started this stream, in the corner of my screen, I get notifications, and about 2 minutes in, it said, Mila's Reef is streaming now, which is kind of nice. Josh, I think flower or rock anemones are very sticky, and if that fish were to be chasing down some food and accidentally hit it, it could get sucked in. It's just too expensive a fish to take that chance. But later on, when this fish isn't in here and I have something like the lemon peel, which is a little bit bigger, because I'm assuming, whatever, I'm going to get small fish forever. But I'm thinking at some point, yes, I can do other things like rock anemones, carpet anemones, not carpet anemones, flower anemones. I think those would be nice. That'd be a cool thing to cover in the bottom of the tank. But Recordias would be great, and they don't sting anything. And I've never had much luck with Recordia, but since this tank over here has no active filtration, the water will tend to be dirtier. And if it's dirtier, I think zoanthids and Recordias would do really, really well. And I might finally be able to do this. Lee and Mandy, I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but they said that angelfish is amazing. I'm only allowed 50 pounds per fish. This fish didn't weigh anything like 50 pounds. No, I get it. I waited 17 years. I think if you wait 17 years for something, you get to spend a few more pounds. Reefer Madness. Yes, let's do that. He wants to do some mouse pads and mugs and stuff. Speaking of mugs, do you guys know I sell these things on my website? The reason I mention that is because I've ordered something new that will be here later next week. And, we lost our lights on the tank. Let me turn it on. I told the app to just run it for 1 hour. Have we been talking for a whole hour? No, we have not. I had to test what the tank looked like before I started. So there you go. By the way, the lights on this tank don't run very long. I think I'm running them. Let's see what the schedule is. The lights come on at, it looks like 3 o'clock is the starting point, and then at 4 o'clock the light is up to whatever percentage I picked, which I don't know, and then by 8 o'clock it's the end. So from 4 to 8 it has a duration of light, and then it tapers off for the next hour. So the lights are actually on from 3 to 9, which is kind of short, but it also helps avoid nuisance algae in the tank. And it's been working out fine. I mean, there's daylight in this room anyway, so it's not like the fish is in total darkness. The reason the room may appear dark in the video is because I got the camera set up. I've got the curtains closed over there that let in all the sunlight and heat from the backyard. So there is that. And then, there's lights from the reef next to it, so there's that. But I've got a shorter duration now. I may increase that some more, but not crazy long. I know many of you like to run these big 12-hour periods, and I'm more a fan of like 9 hours of light. So I like to start it later in the day and let it run into the night. Mr. Sealand TV says, I used to have the same fish tank. It worked out great. That's awesome. Yeah, I like this tank. I like that it had black silicone. Oh boy, Adam says, I'm about to move a tank 8 hours away. Any advice on the best way to keep everything happy during the trip? Anything you think I should do that I might not think of? It's really hard to do what you're going to do, and especially in the heat of the summer. So your livestock needs to be in the cabin with you in your car where you're air conditioned, and you're going to need air pumps, air stones in those containers. You want them covered so they don't slosh over. Might be nice to put it's 8 hours. I would do the air stones thing, but some people like to get their fish store involved where they bag up the fish and they actually put oxygen, like not air, but oxygen. They pump it in the bags, and that way they're packed like to be shipped. And they go in a cooler and you tape the lid shut, and it's isolated as if it's going to ship for 24 hours. That is another method you could employ. And then you've got all your corals that need to stay alive. You've got your rock that you don't want to die off. You've got a sand bed, that if the sand bed's more than 6 months old, you need to wash it anyway and just save a couple of cups of it, like the red Solo cups. Just take a couple scoops of that, put in a Ziploc bag, close the bag, and just keep it, I don't know. You can take that bag and fling it in with a live rock, where it's just, kind of kept temperature equalized, where it doesn't just sit there baking. It doesn't, you don't want to kill the bacteria in that bag of sand, because when you put your clean sand in the tank at your destination and you add your salt water, then you're going to open those Ziploc bags and pour that live sand in there to seed the sand bed. And when you pour that in, you just pour it like in a hill. You don't like spread it out like you're putting salt over spaghetti. We don't want to hit the whole plate. You just take your hill of stuff and let it sit there, and then when the flow is on, it will migrate and the bacteria will move out, and the worms and the bugs and all that will find their way out of the hill, and it'll all kind of level out on its own anyway. So that's one thing. You can use power inverters. The problem is, do you have enough to keep everything running? It's really hard. So I would basically pack everything as if it's being shipped. I think that might be your best bet, but I would keep everything in the cabin with me and not like in the trunk or on the back of the truck in the back. You need to somehow control the temperature as much as you can. And also, when it comes to moving a tank, you said moving a tank. You didn't say anything about moving yourself and all your worldly possessions. When you're doing all of that and your spouse is saying, hey, I need help with the sofa, we got this, we got that, everyone needs to understand you are moving living animals and every minute counts. And they have to understand you are going to do everything with the tank as soon as you get there until it's ready, which could take hours before you can even deal with like boxes and lamps and sofas and mattresses and all the other things. So You know, ideally, I'd like to tell people that if you're going to move, I would recommend that you purchase an extra month of rent and utilities on your old place. So you can move into your new place, move all your worldly possessions, and then you've got a month basically to start up a tank and cycle it. Or at least you have time to go get the tank and do the big move with nothing else on your mind, where your only thing that day is dealing with the tank. You get your friends to help you. Everyone grabs a bucket. They grab a trash can. You know, each person gets a handle on each side of the trash can and hoisted out the front door and into your vehicle, and you drive, and you're eating pizza and you're eating cookies and you're drinking Cokes and beers and all that kind of stuff. And then you get there and everyone helps unload it and you start setting it up. And initially, you can fill the tank 2/3 of the way up, 3/4 of the way up, and just get some flow in the tank. You can put some power heads a little bit lower down. You don't need the water to go into the overflow and down the drain into the sump yet. You can literally deal with that thing that evening, the next day, but you could set up the tank not quite full, and that could run like that for weeks if you stay on top of water changes. So you don't have to rush and get everything operational. You can lay a heater on. So here's what I would think I'm trying to explain this thing. You show up at your destination, you unload the tank stand, you put it in place, you put the tank on top of it, you put your clean rinsed sand into the tank, then you add salt water, and you could do it like my video where I talked about setting up a tank where you pump it into a vase so it doesn't just make a cloud. And then you start moving live rock in because now there's this much water in the tank. You can put the rock in there, and then you could move livestock in there. Fish, you lay a heater down in the back, you put the power heads down low, you can add an air stone if you want, you can add a thermometer obviously, and you don't even need the lights yet. Okay, lights don't matter yet either. Just get everything in water with circulation. Then you can deal with hooking up plumbing that goes down to a sump. You can let it dry and cure, for 6 hours or so, and then finally you can fill the tank with more salt water to the point where it's draining down to now you've got a protein skimmer. And with your brand new setup tank, I wouldn't even put stuff in the Refugium yet. I mean, you can, but it may not survive. It may not. So you're back to the Reef timeline of when to do things. But that's kind of how I would suggest you do it. If you can't do all of that immediately, get the livestock into the house immediately. The kitchen's usually a good place to put it because it's a tile floor or it's laminate or something where if there's water, it can be mopped up. And plug everything in. Plug in heaters and air pumps, and so you can see that there's oxygen being pumped into the the barrel or the bucket you have full of fish, and you've got good circulation and warmth happening inside the trash can full of live rock and possibly corals. And then you can kind of deal with setting up the tank, but all that livestock, you want to stay on top of making sure it's okay. And you may need to add prime to the water because it's a big move in case there was any kind of ammonia die-off to kind of protect your livestock. So that's kind of the things that pop in my mind. I know I've talked about moving tanks in the past. There's probably 2 or 3 videos on this channel that go on and on and on, but that's kind of the short answer. And like I said, you might have thought of many of those things already, but there's some thoughts. Farshil says, have you considered a frosted background to maintain the wall's color and still hide the wires? That's not a bad idea. That could work. Alex says, do you know canister filters belong in reef tanks? Belong? You mean, can they be used? Some people use canister filters. My father did when I was a kid. He had a saltwater tank with a canister filter, and every month we had to take that thing apart, and it was so difficult. You can run them. Cobalt is one that I tried out a few years ago. It was okay. I could literally hook it up to this tank probably if I could find all the pieces, and I could use that to polish the water once in a while. But belongs? No, I wouldn't say that. Charles says, I love the tank. I might get one and drill it for the ghost overflow in a 10-gallon sump in the bottom. You probably could do that. The bottom of this tank is tempered, but the walls are not. So it is possible to do that. The Big O says, I just purchased a water, I think it's probably a water box, 165.6 frag tank, maybe? I don't know. And I plan to set it up as a shallow reef tank. It has a sump, and I've never used a sump before. How do I avoid a flood with a sump when the power goes out? if you set it up correctly and you don't have too much water in the sump so that there's empty space, then it comes down to how the plumbing was installed on the frag system above. And what you can do is you can unplug, if there's a skimmer underneath in your sump and you've got a return pump, unplug both of those and just observe. And you should see water draining down from the tank, and water in the pipes will come down, and the water in the protein skimmer will collapse, and you'll see how much water's in the sump. If it holds all the water and doesn't overflow, it's set up perfectly. If there's too much water, you got to quickly plug everything in, and you may have to raise up the lock line nozzles to not be so far down in the water, because the lower they are, the water in there is here and your lock line is here, it'll back siphon all the way down to here. But if you have water up to here and you raise the lock line up to here, it only comes down like an inch or so and starts sucking in air. You can also drill something called anti-siphon holes in the underside of the lock line, and where, you know, I don't have anything handy. Let's pretend this box is lock line, okay? And let's say we've got it in the tank, and you know, here is the end going down to the plumbing, and then this part here is where the water's shooting out. And your water line is, let me put my hand on this side. Let's say your water, I can't even do this right. Let's say your water line is way up here, okay? Then I would drill 2 holes right about here on the underside. Okay, so your water line's above it, go down, whatever is a ½ inch lower than the water line, that's where you drill 2 holes. So you'll literally take the lock line, you'll bend it upwards, drill the 2 holes, and then fold it back down. And you can have it pointed down nice and low. And then when the power goes out, or the pump is off, what'll happen is the water starts siphoning from here back up and down the drain. But as soon as those 2 holes get exposed, it sucks in air and breaks the siphon instantly, and no more water drains out. So it'll only drain down ½ inch and stop. So that is how you keep your sump from overflowing. Other people will tell you to use check valves, and I don't recommend them because the check valve works until it doesn't. So yes, that's a great idea until it doesn't work. Why wouldn't it work? Check valves fail for a number of reasons, but the biggest one usually is something grows in there because water's flowing through there all the time, and food and particulates are going through there all the time. And so worms, like vermitids, love to set up shop there to get all the food they can. And they build these hard tubes. And then when the flapper needs to come down in an emergency, it can't because the tube's in the way. And so it just does this, and water's just continually going out. So you would have to literally take apart the check valve from time to time, rinse it clean, you know, scrub it, make sure it looks good, and put it back in place. It's just better to set it up where you don't need one in the first place. EDC suggested dragon's breath. That would be a good one. And I saw someone selling a bunch of it recently. I should have grabbed some. One of the zoanthids I bought, let's see if I can zoom in for you. My chair made a tiny noise on the floor, so she thought someone's at the front door. Anyway, in the lower left corner are some zoanthids that are, I think they were pink and green, but since my live rock is pink, it's like, why did you buy those? It was the wrong choice. I need like orange. I need bright, hot colors. I need blues. So I got to start looking for those when I go hunting for more zoanthids. And did you guys notice on the far right, the walking dendro? It's been walking today. It actually moved a couple inches forward during the water change. Oh, and by the way, the water change. Let me talk about that. The big reservoir I have, I keep getting particulates out of the bottom. It makes the water all cloudy for a few hours. And I didn't want to ruin this tank for today's live stream. So what I did was I clamped a huge 7-inch 10-micron filter sock in that tank, and then I took a 2-gallon bucket and I filled it up with that water, and I poured it through the 10-micron sock, so that way this water would look pretty good. And it does. It looks pretty good. It actually looks a little bit better than that usually, but I just did a water change an hour ago. So I was going to tell you, if you're trying to keep your tank looking nice for some reason, you have company coming over, if you can pour through a very fine micron filter sock, like a 5-micron or 10-micron sock, and that is a specific sock, that is not the average sock, okay? Average socks, the ones everyone buys for regular filtration, is 200 micron. And we're talking about 10 and 5 micron. Big difference. Think about the micron filters on your RO system. Some of you have 5 micron. Some of you have 1 micron. I mean, you are really stopping anything over 1 micron in size. So what I did in this case is I clamped it on, and I was able to pour 10 gallons of water into the tank without disturbing any of the sand, because the sock caught the brunt of the water going in, and then it weeped out, obviously. And it worked out perfectly. So if you're wanting to do so, I just want to give you that as a helpful hint, if that would be of any use to you. Hello, Steve from Essex. Charles says, maybe I missed it, but you went away from metal halide even though you have a stockpile of extra bulbs? Yeah. I think the sky is a good light. Yes, it is a good light. And I have extra ballasts. I still have the original pendants. I have extra bulbs because I buy things in abundance. And then I always have them available if something gets damaged or broken or fails to operate. But yeah, it was about a year and a half ago, I got a phone call from Terrence at Neptune Systems, and he said, would you consider installing the sky on your reef? And I always say no. I always say no to everyone. Like, no, I'm happy with my lights. But that time I said yes. And then I hung up the phone, and I told Caitlin, I just did something I've never done before. I said yes. And she was like, all right. And I was like, I just have a feeling it's about time for me to try LEDs over my 400-gallon reef. I've been running metal halides forever, since 2002. And I had been running metal halides over this reef behind me. Well, I set up the tank in 2011. And then after 13 months, it sprung a leak. And then I had to set up an emergency tank for another 18 months before this one showed up. And then those lights got moved back over this one. And this tank behind me is 8.5 years old. So there was 13 months, 18 months, and 7.5 years of metal halides over my reef. Whatever that adds up to. 10 years. And so I've had the skies over my reef now for the past, I think this is 13 months now. And the corals are doing really well. And if you follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, I shared, I don't know, 10 or 15 pictures, no, actually it was 20 pictures of top down of all the corals as they are as of like 3 days ago. They're really doing really well. I'm very happy with the growth. And yeah, I was really glad to try something different. Now, the webcam still, the one I'm using right now to look at you, because I'm using the good camera for the tank. The webcam hates my reef. It will never look right no matter what I do. So I try to adjust the lighting to make it look right, and it still looked like garbage behind me. So I just left it in whatever is happening, which my tank's kind of blue right now. And but I like that I can just switch them instantly and start taking video, or I can take some pictures, or if somebody wants to see something, or if I have to work in the tank, I can just quickly change the spectrum and then switch it back to normal. I couldn't do that with metal halides. They were either on or they were do with what I was looking at. Jay, you did not scare me. Let's see. Steve says, my lights are more than 6 years old, but I renewed the LED pads, which I'm going to assume are the, what do they call those? They don't usually call them pads, but I know what you're saying. You replace the LEDs, which was the way to do it. And that's what Dwayne was doing with his tank. He had all those black box LEDs, and every year he would unsolder every LED off of there and put brand new ones on there because he ran all the lights at 100% every single day, and it was quite the ordeal. Then after all those years of doing that, he got his hands on some used Radions, I think, and then he ended up getting the Sky. And I teased him. I said, so are you going to be unsoldering your LEDs off the Sky? And he said, absolutely not. Yeah, he's done. So yeah, but yeah, if you are doing something to fix your lights, you can have them longer. And yeah, you can do it for less money than buying a new fixture. But a lot of us, myself included, I don't unsolder stuff and solder new stuff on. I don't know how to do that. Do I need another hobby? No. Yeah, Josh says, I'm considering either replacing the board in my SB Reef light, or there's a light called Smart Farm? It can't be Smat Farm. G5 that's 140 bucks. So that's a good deal, but I don't know anything about it. I know Vivispar is another one a lot of people like. And then, there's other stuff out there like I think it's called Loop from Current USA that some people have run that was less expensive. There's other names eluding me right now, but there's quite a few choices out there. And then David said, how many pounds of rock was that for your new tank? It may be 20, 25 pounds. It wasn't a lot. It was one box. And I was tempted to go with more, but then I knew I'd have a big pile. And I didn't want a big pile because, number one, I didn't want the fish to have a place to hide where I can't see it. I know, I'm so selfish. But I thought if I have some rock in there, it definitely has a place to call home, which it works. Both fish are having little spots where they go in and tuck in. And when I came back from something, I was gone for some reason. And I came back and I couldn't find the fish anywhere. I think I went to I went to go visit my son. And I came back and I look in the tank and there's no pygmy angelfish. I'm like, what? And there's a lid, and there's no way for it to jump out, to elude this tank, to end up on the floor and die. So I'm just like, where is it? And I was looking and looking. And finally, you get down low enough and you twist your head sideways and you gaze diagonally through the spot. And I saw the little tail. So it had found some little hidey hole inside the core of all the rocks that it likes to use for security reasons. But fortunately, it was just barely in the tank a day or so. I couldn't believe it was the next day I already couldn't find this fish. But she's out pretty much all the time now. And the nice thing is I can walk up to the tank and both fish don't quickly dart away. They're in the front, or they're watching, or they're hoping I'll put in food, which is great. I love it when fish are not super shy. Josh says he'd like to have a bobbit worm in a species tank. I don't know why. They just fascinate him. Omar says, is upgrading a skimmer a level up for more watts and power better for the water quality and size of a tank? Well, I mean, it just depends what you had before versus what you're getting next, and also the bioload you have in the tank and how much food you're putting in the tank. If you, have more, I mean, if your tank is really filling in and you have a lot of hungry mouths and you're putting in quite a bit of food, then having a slightly larger skimmer could make a difference to help keep up with the exporting of waste. My own tank has a big skimmer on it, and yet I'm not pulling out a lot of skimmate. And I'm sure if I were to adjust the skimmate to be more watery, where it's pulling out like a gallon a week, it'd probably be better for my tank, actually. It'd probably help with the phosphate and nitrate. But the trick is you want to export enough without exporting too much. In other words, you don't want to set up a skimmer that is so finicky that just the slightest change in weather outside and the skimmer's just like overflowing or shutting itself off because it's full. So I like to find that sweet spot, and it seems like I've got it a little bit under-dialed for some reason. So I need to kind of adjust mine a little bit more just to get a little bit more waste out. Because like I dumped out the waste collector and it had this much, which might have been, I don't know, maybe half a gallon of liquid. And that was collected in probably 2 weeks time. Seems like I should be pulling out more than that. So how you run the skimmer, as well as what size the skimmer is, as well as the bioload, everything has to work together. Now, if you go supersize your skimmer and get some giant thing because it was a great deal and it doesn't work at all, there's a reason. Because you can't have a monster skimmer on a small tank. It just won't work. It just never has enough docks in the water to export anything into the collection cup. It just seems to like boil down low, and it just never works right. So you do need it to match, and it does seem that most of the skimmers on the market these days are rated pretty closely to what they can do, so that you can adjust the airflow and adjust the power of the pump itself, and kind of find just the ideal strength of the foam in the body of the skimmer to remove the waste. Alex says, what is the easiest SPS coral? Bird's nest is probably the simplest of all of them. Yeah, the group is still doing well, Thomas. There's about 9,000 people in there now. Let's see. EDC says, I picked up 2 100-watt Night Crew Hyper Reef fixtures. You're the second person mentioned Hyper Reef in the last week to me. Got them from Amazon. And says, I love not having analog light timers. I feel like they're a good mid-budget light. What'd they cost? And you are right, OU8112. The bubble stone does give it a nostalgic look. I do like it. Paul says, I got a gold rush tang. Is that a yellow tang? But it instantly got attacked by a silver spot tang. What kind of tang is that? And I managed to catch him, and he's in a peacemaker. How long should I leave him in there for the likelihood of success? First of all, I don't know what the silver spot is, so I don't know if it's an aggressive tang in the first place. It's just not going to tolerate anything. But normally, if a fish is in a acclimation box or in the peacemaker for 3 days, that usually is enough time for the fish to see each other but not hate each other. And then when you finally pour it in, they're like, okay, and they get along. But if you have a fish that's overly aggressive, you may need to remove the aggressive fish and temporarily put it maybe in the sump or in a separate aquarium briefly, like overnight. You may have to move around your rockwork to kind of like change up the territories and then reintroduce the fish back into the tank. And because it's all different, the fish may not fight because now they don't have a turf to defend. But that's kind of really the only two things you can do. Other than that, if they absolutely will not get along, you're not going to be able to have both in the tank together. Yes, that is Jason. He's been giving me so much crap on Facebook. Every time I post a picture that's not this fish, he says, hashtag, that's not the Interruptus angelfish. So this time he says, that's the Interruptus angelfish. See if I can make it a little bit brighter. It seems a little dark. Let's see. Try this. There you go. You can see a little bit better. But see, now the sand's too bright. That's why I had to turn down. Okay. This question I don't understand, Tom. Ask it again. Yeah, I like this advice. Kyle says, if you can afford it, hire movers to move all the normal stuff so you can focus 100% on your pets and tank in the vehicle. Let's see. Augie, I haven't seen those. The disc filters? Maybe, are you talking about something that fits down inside a collection cup? Trevor says, hope you're doing well. The new tank looks great. Caitlin would definitely love it. Something totally off topic, but I know you love it. Have you watched the new Obi-Wan series? I absolutely have. I'm always caught up. My TV is on all the time. I'm actually working on the Umbrella Academy Season 3 because it's on Netflix. And I just watched, by the way, so many people were complaining about the new Doctor Strange movie. Did you like it? I liked it. It was entertaining. I didn't find lots of holes in the storyline. I thought it was pretty fascinating. But it seemed like a lot of people were not happy with it. And I was like, I thought it was cool. Well, I'm not going to say anything about it because if you haven't seen it yet, I don't want to ruin it for you. And it's available on Disney Plus right now. I want to answer Tom, who's trolling me. Can you put dogs in an aquarium? You can put puppies in a brand new aquarium that has nothing in it yet, and you can take a cute little picture, and then you can take the puppy back out, and you can set up your fish tank. EIY, I don't know. He says, I have a small Aiptasia outbreak and I want to add a filefish, but I have small rock flower anemones. Is there a chance the filefish eating rock flower anemones after being done with the Aiptasia? I don't know the answer to that. Again, those anemones are sticky, and they can catch. I mean, they're designed to catch fish. They could catch a filefish. So I don't know if the filefish would kill them or if they would kill it. I would probably just use Aiptasia. That's what I'm going to use in this one. I'm going to use. If you've not used Aiptasia yet, and the F stands for what you think it stands for, it works that well. You mix it up. You have to really, really mix it. I mean, when they say in the instructions, stir it, they are not understating it. You stir the crap out of it until it is completely well mixed. Then you fill your syringe, and you'll go ahead and turn off all the flow in the tank, and you will cover and coat, like frosting over the Aiptasia completely, and you leave the flow off for a good solid hour, maybe longer. When you turn the flow back on, if it starts blowing, turn the flow off again, because it's supposed to turn hard and crusty. And the idea is that it's sitting there smothering the Aiptasia, and the acid or whatever's in it will destroy and kill what's underneath it. And then after 3 days, you can chip off the little bits. They'll break up like calcium carbonate. They'll break up, and you can either siphon those bits of white crap out when you're done, or you can crumble them up and let them kind of get lost in the sand bed if you want. But it needs to completely harden, and then the Aiptasia should be gone. Cedric says, what are your thoughts on biomedia as we dive deeper into bacteria these days? It makes me wonder how much workload does that brick share as bacteria grows and everything? I don't know. I mean, I tried a couple of those bricks to lower nitrate, and it just didn't do anything for me. It didn't do anything for the tank. I tried for like 8 or 9 months with no change, no effect. So, I don't know. Look, there are certain things in life that I just refuse to accept. And I'm going to tell them to you now, because I'm an honest guy. So the light that is traveling through the universe from stars that we see, they say the star is long dead, doesn't exist, and the light is still coming here. And I don't believe that. I can't believe that, okay? I just don't get it. If there's a light bulb in my room and I turn on the light, the bulb worked. And when the bulb dies, there's no more light. I realize I'm no physicist, I'm no scientist, and I just have a hard time grasping that light is traveling without the source behind it. I mean, you point a flashlight at me from 1,000 feet away, I still see the light and I know there's a flashlight behind it. Have a really hard time believing that there is a dead flashlight or a dead star behind that light that I'm looking at in space. Okay, that's number one. Number two, they say the surface area of a granular carbon is like miles, and I'm just like, I don't understand that. It's like 1/8 of an inch. It's a nugget. I don't understand the porosity of carbon. I never did. I don't get it. Doesn't mean I haven't read about it. I don't get it. So when they talk about these bricks, these ceramic bricks, and they have all this surface area, and there's all these holes, so there's like, tons of room. I'm like, I don't get it. Doesn't mean that I'm right. I'm probably wrong on all of it. But I just have a hard time accepting it. I have a hard time grasping it, and I don't pretend to understand it. Because I don't. My brain just refuses to acknowledge it as a reality. And I know that makes me sound like an idiot, but it's just, it's just me being honest. I mean, there's certain things I get, and there's certain things I don't. And that stuff, I just don't get it. I don't. I know we're talking about stuff on a subatomic level, and we're talking about microscopic stuff and all this stuff. I'm like, eh. But can the ceramic media make a difference? Maybe. There are lots of tanks I've seen that have like ceramic noodles, ceramic balls, ceramic bricks, ceramic pads. I mean, when I say pads, it's like, it's another form of brick, but it's like narrow and long and wide, and they stick between the baffles. I don't know if it does anything. I mean, I've seen so many tanks that didn't have them, and the tank did well too. So what can I say? I can't wait to get the reactions for me debating space with you. I mean, look, again, when we look in space and we see all the dots, and we look through a telescope and we might get to see the moon, which, by the way, I still can't believe, and I don't know why I didn't know this. I did go to school. I did not know that the moon never turns, and it's just like, I'm sure it was told to me, and I just never acknowledged it. And it was something like maybe 10 years ago where maybe a Transformer movie came out where it talked about the dark side of the moon. And they were like, yeah, that side never sees the light of sun. I'm like, what? And then I was like, that kind of sounds familiar. And I was like, wow, that is nuts that we never see the other side of the moon, ever. Anyway, a lot of times NASA and, you know, whoever, they post these fantastic pictures of these nebulas in space. If you've watched Star Trek, you've seen all these crazy looking things in space. But that's not what I see when I look up. And when I'm in the middle of absolute darkness, like in Arizona or New Mexico, and I look up and I can see, you know, the Milky Way, it's fantastic. It's so wonderful, and it's something we almost never get to see. Anyway, I just have a hard time believing these nebulas and stuff exist out there because we can't go there. I hate that we're not traveling in space yet, like you and me, like us traveling in space. I feel like at this point in life, it's 2022. We're supposed to be like the Jetsons, living in cities up in the air. Okay, that's the end of my very stupid rant. Desert Elephant, thank you for saving me here. Some heroes wear capes, some masks, some have coffee mugs. Take sip of coffee from newly acquired mug. Been a knowledge sponge for a while, but I finally feel like a fan. You are a fan. I'm a fan that you're a fan. Brian, my beard came off last November. So yes, you haven't been here in a while. And the reason is I was going scuba diving. Jay says, will you be at Reefapalooza in August? Yes, I think I will be there because that's here in Dallas. Desert Elephant says, what's your tank stand height? Do you like it or wish it was taller or shorter for viewing and maintenance? Do you recommend an insertable plank in drawing planning phase of my new tank? So my tank behind me, the 400-gallon, is pretty tall. The stand is either 38 or 42 inches. And I love that height. I love to stand in front of my reef and look at it. And so the thing behind me is my walkboard. And the steel frame was welded specifically with the rails for the walkboard. And then I can pull out the walkboard and I can go around the back and insert the walkboard from the back side as well, because my tank is 3 feet wide. And that way I can work from either side whenever I need to. But most of the time the walkboard is on the front facing side. Now when I get my woodwork done, odds are I will have the walkboard on the backside all the time. Right now, I couldn't even put the walkboard in place because of the temporary tank that's set up back there for the anemone cube livestock, because that tank isn't set up yet. So once that tank gets set up again and that temporary tank is gone, I can start using the walkboard from the backside. I can start working on the woodwork on the front side. And but then if I need to insert the walkboard, I will then remove the front panels, put the walkboard in place, do what I have to do, remove the walkboard, put the panels back up. Now, do I wish it was higher or lower? No, it's the perfect height. I love this height. And what you can do if you want, since you're in the planning stage, you can go to the wall where you're going to put the tank, and you can use blue masking tape, and you can actually tape where the stand is, where the tank is, and you can stand there. You can get on a step ladder to imagine reaching in to kind of get an idea. Now, I have 8-foot ceilings. I don't know if your house has 9 or 10-foot ceilings. If they do, then this isn't a factor. But with my tank being an 8-foot ceiling room, when I stand on the walkboard, I have to be bent over. I can't stand up straight, which may be hard on your neck or your back. It's just something to keep in mind. There have been times where I was doing photography and I would kneel on the walkboard and work over the tank taking pictures. Worked out really, really well. I have no regrets with the walkboard. I love it. The walkboard, I like to have it as close to even with the bottom of the tank as possible. And so right here you can see that's the black trim. And then underneath it, this is, can't get my hand there. This is plywood. And this is the steel stand right here. EDC, that's a really good deal. I'll have to check out those lights. I think I know someone that bought one this week as well. Brian said he's asking about the Live Rock. I got it from gulfliverock.com. Rick, I'm only like 2 or 3 episodes into season 3, but it's pretty good so far. The big problem for me with these shows is that I tend to forget where I left off, and when they do the recap, it's not enough of a recap. And so sometimes I end up just binging season 1 and 2 all over again to start season 3. I just did that with The Boys, another show I love. Protex Remodeling says, my filefish doesn't eat anything. Well, that's kind of a worthless fish. Augie says, my first time on your live stream, my question is to you, what is your favorite coral? I really like the sun coral, but since my sun coral is barely opening, and I'd kind of like to put it into Caitlin's tank, but they need to be fed a lot, and they would really spike the nutrients in that small body of water with no filtration. So that's a terrible idea. But I have some dendrophilia that are just lovely. They're like supersized sun corals. So that's kind of my favorite. I tend to find, and I'll tell you this, I've noticed this about a lot of you guys, a lot of the pictures, a lot of the tanks you guys have set up. You know, we talk a lot about SPS and other stuff and fish, but LPS is like what everyone adores. It seems like everyone has a torch coral, for example, or tons of torch corals. And I don't even have one. But I have hammers and frammers and little bits of frog spawn here and there. But yeah, the LPS corals tend to be really popular. I think because they're larger, they give you more to look at. There's some movement involved. You can watch them eat. You know, there's a lot of activity there. It could be why they're so popular. Josh says, what's the best way to correct high calcium? He says, I probably need to bump up my alkalinity a little bit because it's only 7.25, but my calcium is just too high. Well, you didn't say what the number was. So I would say water changes can help bring it down. But if the calcium is coming out of the rock, because a lot of times we're using rock that's man-made, you may have calcium levels that are spiked, and it's going to be really hard to bring down calcium at all, if at all possible. So you need to use salt water that has really low levels of calcium in it for those water changes to kind of dilute it down. My frag tank had calcium levels of like 600 from inception, and I could not get them to come down until I got rid of the rock. And I hadn't dosed it. I stopped dosing calcium for like a year and a half, and the number still wouldn't come down. I was like, this is insane. And Brent says, I prefer Aiptasia X. Aiptasia will kill anything you get some on. That's true. The Aiptasia will kill anything that's under it. Aiptasia X, I've bought multiple bottles of that, and I've used it many times, but I never solved the problem. They just kept coming back. So it didn't really kill them off, gone. It just kind of slowed them down, and then I had to deal with them again and again and again. And I would take, because my tanks are bigger, I would fill like 4 or 5 or 6 syringes with Aiptasia and work my way across the tank trying to get them all. You know, I was like, ah. But Aiptasia seems to do better than Aiptasia X for me. I don't know if I said that right. I filled up many syringes with Aiptasia X. That's why I was buying the big bottle of Aiptasia X instead of the little ones. And then I would just constantly fill up syringes. Rick, no, I don't think the Earth is flat. I believe the Earth is a ball. When did this channel become that channel? Don't worry. I was just ranting about weird things that I don't get. That's okay. I'm sure there's things you don't get too. Sin City says, love the channel. How are you liking your Reef Bright XHOs? I really do. I like them a lot. And I have them over the Anemone Cube and over the 400-gallon Reef. And I do enjoy seeing the enhanced blue or violet or whatever it is that it gives off. It makes a huge difference in the tank. Now, I'll tell you, when my skies are at 100% in all channels, you cannot tell the XHOs are on. I would literally flip them on, off, and you could not tell. It's like, wow, they are that blown. I mean, the sky is that intense, you can't even tell. That was pretty remarkable. Thank you, Aquatic and Stuff. I'm sure the end stuff is why you know this. He says the moon does rotate, but it rotates at the exact amount to show the same face. That makes no sense. Ugly Reefer says, how would you solve a cyanobacteria outbreak that won't go away? Well, I would siphon out all that you can before you start treating the tank. And then I would treat the tank with Red Cyano RX or ChemiClean. I would leave the protein skimmer off. You can add an air stone to the tank if you like. And then after 3 days, if the cyano is still present, treat the tank again with more of the product as if you're doing it for the first time, and wait 2 more days. Then do your big water change. At this point, the cyano should be completely gone, and then you can go ahead and start your protein skimmer up again, and you should be all right. But sometimes you'll have some really stubborn strains that have a really hard, they hold on really well. So you just got to wait it out a little bit longer. But do not neglect the water change. You absolutely have to do this big water change when you're done. Aniket, I think you're just now joining the live stream. I think you're talking about this tank you're looking at, about putting in some more fish that are schooling or shoaling is really what happens in an aquarium. I'm trying not to have a huge bioload, but there will be more to look at in the future. Something to look forward to, but it's a very simple tank, and it needs to have a very simple bioload so that it doesn't get overly polluted and become a nitrate. I mean, a hair algae farm. You know, I don't want it to be ugly. Well, listen, guys, we've been talking for about an hour and a half. I want to remind you that today is Water Test Saturday. Please do test your water. We always wrap up our live stream on this topic. It's so important to test your water. I tested the water in both the small tank you're looking at now as well as my 400-gallon Reef before the live stream today, so my job's done. And I encourage you to check everything: alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, nitrate, phosphate, temperature, pH, ORP, potassium. These are all good things to test to make sure that everything's okay in your tank before problems develop. And if you're aware of the numbers, you can make slight adjustments in your dosing or in your water change routine or whatever it is you need to do because you have the information. Water tests save lives is something Caitlin said, and she's 100% right. And so we want to stay on top of that water testing. Don't be lazy. Those test kits are only good for about a year after you open them. Most of the kits have 50 tests in them because there's 52 weeks in a year. So use your kits. I mean, you bought them, use them, and find out what's going on with your tank. See if there's anything you need to fix. And I hope you guys